Hello, guys. Welcome to another exciting episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And as always, I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Wesley Farnsworth. He's an author, speaker, preacher, and host of the Unmasked with Wesley Farnsworth podcast. Many people find it easy to have faith when life is going well. But the deeper question is, what happens when life isn't going well? What happens when prayers seem unanswered? When relationships don't heal? When the future becomes uncertain? When the thing you believe God will do never happens? Wesley's message comes from lived experience, not just theory. He is the author of The Blueprint of Becoming and his upcoming book, When Faith Meets Fire, where he explores how seasons of pressure, waiting, and uncertainty can become opportunities for spiritual growth and transformation. Today, we talk about faith under pressure, identity, healing, recovery, and what it looks like to keep moving forward when life doesn't go according to plan. Wesley, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so good to be with you today.
All right, Wesley, I have some questions here for you, and I would like us to get into them.
Sure. Your audio is breaking up a little bit still, just to give you a heads up.
Okay. So, many people believe that faith is easy when life is going well. What does faith look like when life doesn't go the way you expected?
Yeah, you're right. Faith is really easy when life is going well because we don't have anything that we're worried about. But when things don't go well, that's when your faith gets tested. And what that looks like, man, that just means it looks like trusting in God every single day to provide everything that you need and looking for Him in the small things. As I look back, I think back over, 2025, and I look at I had a 9-month period where I was unemployed because I had lost my job and I was not able to find one for one reason or another. And as I look back over it and I think back now, I look at the number of times where I said, God, I can't do this. On paper, I should not be able to cover my bills every month. God, I'm trusting in you to provide. And every single time I looked at Him and I asked Him, and I truly trusted in Him to provide, He did. Sometimes it was via an extra small, a side job, designing a website or an extra Uber ride or whatever it might be. It was through the small things that He would provide that extra little bit that I needed to get me over the hump to provide for the month. And so it boils down to, okay, like, God, I know that I can't do it. So I'm trusting in you to do it and just letting Him do it.
Okay, so what is the difference between believing in God and truly trusting God?
In order to trust in God, I think you kind of have to believe in Him, because it's really hard to trust in something that you don't believe in. And so the first step is saying, okay, God, you know what? I believe that you are true. I believe that you are real. I believe that you came, that you sent your Son, Jesus, to this earth to die for us. That He died and He rose again, and that you love me and that I'm your child. And you have to have that relationship with Him in order to trust Him. Because I don't know about you, but I've had relationships with people that, because I really didn't know them, I couldn't trust them. And I've had people ask me to trust in something that I've never seen. And that's really hard to do. And so in order for you to be able to trust in God, you really have to have a relationship with him.
Okay. So, how do you continue holding on to faith when your prayers seem unanswered or the outcome you hope for never comes?
It boils down to, again, it comes down to your faith and really just trusting that God is going to provide like he says he will. He says in scripture, in the Bible, that he will never leave us or forsake us. And you just have to hold on to that. And just trust that, he may not answer you when you want your answer. And that's probably because he's trying to teach you something. And that's something that I've learned over the years is, sometimes the answer has been no. And sometimes the answer has been silence, because he was trying to teach me something that prepared me for the answer to be yes, or the answer to be no. But in order for me to be able to accept that answer, I had to learn something first. And so if you're praying for something and you're not getting an answer, I would challenge you to look at your life and ask God, what are you trying to teach me in this season while I wait for the answer?
So, Wesley, you talk about God not wasting our waiting seasons. So why do you believe those seasons are often where the greatest growth happens?
I only caught about every 3 words that you just said.
You talk about God not wasting our waiting seasons. Why do you believe those seasons are often where the greatest growth begins?
Okay, just to clarify, you're asking about God not wasting seasons?
Yes, not wasting our waiting seasons.
Okay. God doesn't waste a season. Everything that you do, everything that you've gone through, everything that that you have felt, those are all things that God can use. It's very easy for us to let things define us, right? If you're out there and you've ever struggled with an addiction, you can be like, hey, I'm an addict. And you let those things define you. But you know what? Those things don't define you. They are a part of you. They are a part of your story, but they don't define who you are. And when you accept that and you see the difference there, then you can say, okay, yeah, you know what? I used to be an addict. I used to struggle with these things. But that's not who I am now. That's a part of my story. It's a part of my past. But that season is over. I'm now in this new season. And now I can use my experiences, the things that I learned from that season, to shape my current season, to better myself for this current season, maybe to help somebody else in this current season who might be going through that same thing that I went through. And so it's all about allowing God to use the seasons that you've gone through, the challenges that you've gone through, the struggles, and allow him to use those things to not only shape you for the future, but to potentially help somebody else because you've been where they are now.
Okay, so let's talk about your upcoming book. Your upcoming book is called When Faith Meets Fire. What does it mean to be refined by fire and not destroyed by it?
Yeah, when our faith is in the fire, that is essentially everyday life. Every day we go through something, our faith is in the fire. When we're in a season of unemployment, when we're in the season battling an addiction, when we're struggling, looking for a new relationship, anything that we're going through that is testing our faith, that is when our faith is in the fire and it's being refined. It's being strengthened. The flames make metals They heat them up and they refine them and then they strengthen them. And that's exactly what's happening to our faith. As you go through life, as long as your faith is in God and you're trusting in Him, then everything is just part of your refining process. And in the end, when you come out the other side, your faith is stronger. And so the challenge is when we are in the fire and we say, you know what, God, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to take care of this. And we try and take things off, try and handle things on our own. That's when our faith is no longer being refined, and instead it's being weakened because we've taken the control from God and we've taken it over ourselves. And so in the book, I talk about like different ways that you can refine your faith, different ways that I've experienced it in my own life by seeing God provide in times when, I wasn't expecting it. And just really how to refine your faith and how to look for God in the small things to be able to have that stronger faith, so that when you hit the really big fires, the extended seasons of unemployment, like I talked about earlier, you have the faith to be able to pull from and lean on to get you through it.
So looking back at your own journey, what difficult season shaped your faith the most?
There are several seasons in my life that shaped my faith the most. Everything from my youngest brother being killed in a car accident at the age of 16, to my dad's illness, to my seasons of unemployment. Each one was a really strong fire that shaped my faith in a new way. Each one taught me a new lesson that without those fires, without those challenges, I would not be who I am today.
Okay. So can you pick the most difficult one of them?
Which one? I'm sorry, which one's the most difficult?
Yes, the most difficult.
Again, I don't know that I don't know that I can say which one was the most difficult because they each had their own challenges. When my brother was killed in the car accident at age 16, that was a huge loss to not only me personally, but my family. And it took a lot of time to be able to kind of work through that. But then you look at the opposite side of, with my dad's illness and the things that I saw and experienced because of that, and the way that I saw God provide, like that, everything that I've gone through has been a challenge, but each in their own unique way. And so I don't know that I can say which one was the hardest because they were so different and so unique.
Okay. So you talk about living unmasked. Why do so many people hide their struggles, and what keeps us from being honest about what we are facing?
Yeah, that's a really good question because we're taught from a very young age to wear masks, and we don't even realize it. We're taught from basically day one out of the womb that social norms. If you're passing somebody on the street, you say, "Hey, how are you?" and the response is, "I'm fine" or "I'm good." Right. And even if you're not good, even if you're not fine, you're taught to say that because that's the polite thing to do. They don't really want to know how you're doing. They're just wearing a mask, just like you're wearing a mask when you give them the canned response that you're taught to say. And so we're just taught from a very young age to wear masks and to not let anybody in, to not talk about the things that we're going through. And so I would actually challenge you to think about what would life be like if we were not wearing masks. What would life be like if you saw me on the street and you said, "Hey, Wes, how you doing today?" And I said, "You know what? I'm not having the best of days. Thanks for asking, though." Man, talk about freedom, because now I'm not having to rely on a mask to say that I'm fine. I can just be honest and say, "You know what? I'm not having the best of days." I don't have to tell you everything that's going on in my life, because you probably don't want to know. But I can at least be honest, and I can say, "You know what? I'm not having the best of days." And then the ball's in your court, and you can say, "Man, I'm sorry to hear that. I would love to hear more. Maybe I can help you out." Or you can just say, "You know what? I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it turns around for you." Either way, you're acknowledging that I'm not having the best of days, and you're wishing me the best of luck or offering help on either way. But it shows that I'm seen, and I don't have to wear the mask.
Okay, so why do you believe honesty and surrender can accomplish what willpower alone cannot?
Say that again.
Why do you believe honesty and surrender can accomplish what willpower cannot?
Because when you're able to be honest, man, that opens the doors to so many things. And, when you can't be honest, you tend to hide things. And then the more you hide things, the more that you try to keep track of who did I tell what to, right? And so you're constantly taking one mask off and putting another mask on. And when you do that, it's really hard to accomplish things. But if you can take off your mask and you can be honest, now you're freeing yourself up. You're freeing that much more brain power up, because you're no longer having to worry about who did I tell what to. And you can just be honest and free. And when you do that, like I said, you're able to accomplish more, because you're able to stop worrying about some of the smaller details and focus on the big picture.
Okay, so for someone listening who feels or who is rebuilding after failure, loss, addiction, disappointment, or a painful season, where should they begin?
I'm sorry, I still can't understand you.
For someone, Wesley, for someone listening right now, for someone that is listening right now, that is hearing your voice right now, and is rebuilding their life after failure, or after a loss, or after a period of addiction, or disappointment, or a very painful season in their life, where should they begin, Wesley? Where should they start from?
You know what? I would say the best place to begin is on your knees and in prayer. When you're going through a hard season in life, it can seem like it will never end. I've been there. And if that's you today and you're listening to this episode of this podcast, I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that you're listening for a reason. And I want you to know that there's hope. And you just need to start on your knees and just take it to God and be honest with him. And just tell him what you're going through. And then after you do that, I would say find one more person. Find another human being that you can be open and honest with and tell them what you're going through. Because when you have somebody else in your corner, another human being that can be there and listen and provide feedback and just be a sounding board, man, that's so freeing. And it gives you the ability to work through things in a way that you just can't do by yourself. And it gives you a new level of hope.
Okay, thank you so much, Wesley. So what would you say to the person who feels like God is silent right now?
If you're listening and you feel like God is silent, then I would just encourage you to continue to seek him. and just know that he's still there, and just just know that he loves you. And if you're like, I've been asking for this thing for forever and he's just been silent, then I would challenge you to look at what's going on and say, okay, what am I supposed to learn during this season? Because I know there was season during my 9-month unemployment last year, there were seasons where I felt like he was pretty quiet. But now as I look back at it, there were seasons, it was during those quiet times that I was learning the most, and I was my faith was being strengthened. And so I would take the silence that you're experiencing not as him abandoning you, but maybe him trying to teach you something, and just continue to seek him, and he'll answer. He'll be there.
Okay, so here is my final question for you, Wesley. What does becoming the person God created us to be look like in everyday life?
You know, that the easiest way to answer that is using the analogy that I use in my first book, The Blueprint of Becoming. You know, when ships navigate the open waters, they tend to use stars as their main way of navigation. That way, if electronics fail or anything else happens, the stars are always there. And so they use the North Star as their compass. That's how they figure out where they're at. And you do the same thing in your life. Your North Star should be Christ. And if you are truly walking and you have a relationship with him and you're allowing him to be your North Star, the thing that you're making all of your decisions off of, you're consulting him for everything, then life will work out the way it's supposed to. You'll be walking in the blueprint that he has for you. But it's those times that you don't make him the center, and you make your job or your relationship or your kids or anything else the main thing, that your life starts to go off course. And that is when things start to not go so well. And so what does it look like to walk every day with him in the center? For me, that's prayer every day, throughout the day, multiple times. For me, that's listening to worship music. For me, that's being in the Word as often as I possibly can, whether that's listening to it, looking at biblical things on social media, reading the Bible, all those different things, and just absorbing as much faith-based content as I can. To ensure that he stays at the center of my life.
Firstly, thank you so much for sharing your story and reminding us that faith is not only built in moments of victory, it is often strengthened in the moments when we are waiting, struggling, and searching for answers. Your message shows that the difficult seasons of life do not have to define us. They can become the very places where healing, growth, and transformation begin. For those that would like to learn more about you, Wesley, and your book, When Faith Meets Fire, as well as your upcoming books as well, how can they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me, my books, my podcast, everything that I'm doing is through my website. You can go to wesleyfarnsworth.com/start. There you can find links to my books. You can find links to my podcast, everything else that I'm doing. I also have some free content that I've built specifically for podcast listeners that have listened to me. So if you just plug in your email address there, I will send you those free content. It's just a thank you for connecting with me. And then if you ever have a prayer request or you have questions, you can just reply to those emails and I will get them. And I'm always happy to have a dialogue and help in that manner if that's what you need.
Okay, thank you so much, Wesley. I really appreciate you for coming, and thanks to my audience as well. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share this conversation with someone who may need encouragement in their own season of uncertainty. Thank you so much, Wesley, for coming to my show.
Thanks so much for having me. It was good to be with you.
And do have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, and bye, my audience. See you guys on the next episode of Control or Be Control. Bye, guys.